Hi, team. So I welcome you in this really exciting journey of generative AI. We are going to explore some really good practical use cases of generative AI through Gemini. But first, let's try to have a quick discussion on what is generative AI. A field of AI which is used to create some really original content. Okay, that means there is no copyright. It will not copy from anywhere. It will create absolute new content. Okay, like for example, if I had given an article to you, okay, and after that I asked you to create a summary out of it. So based upon the study, based upon the learning that you gain from the article, you create a summary in your own word. So that means you are generating a summary. Generative AI is similar to that. It is an AI which is designed to generate or create original content from the pattern it learned from the existing data. Okay, like because before it is AI, artificial intelligence, obviously it is being trained. Okay, it is trained on some existing data, some which can be a text, which can be image, which can be audio, which can be video. So once it is trained, based upon the training, based upon the learning it is having, it will try to generate a new content. It can be image, text, audio, video, anything. That is what generative AI. Generative AI is based out of one of the major thing that is called LLM, large language model. So LLM is, you can say, it's a core engine behind a generative AI. Large language model is what this is called, large language model. If a particular model is trained on huge set of data, so that in future it can generate something new, right? Like our brain is also like a large language model. We had been trained on so many, we studied so many books in our life, we studied in colleges, in schools. So our brain is having so many information stored. Okay, that's why if someone will ask us to respond in a particular way, if someone will ask us that, okay, tell me about your country, so we know how, what is my, like, in which country we live, what are the places to visit in my country, what are the good things in my country, so I can explain, right? I can generate the content, right? Same way a generative AI is using LLM that is being trained on very large scale of text data, which is data from Wikipedia, from Google, from different sources, right? From books, right? So it's a core engine, okay, behind generative AI for text-based application. They are trained on vast database and can generate human-like responses. That is called LLM, right? Now there are multiple LLMs that are there in the use. One is called GPT that we use so much, like all of you must have used sometime, or if you have not used, it is called Generative Pre-trained Transformer. OpenAI developed it, right? And it powers Chat GPT kind of platform. Okay, it excels in text generation and reasoning, right? So GPT is something which is a technology behind Chat GPT. Okay, and Chat GPT we use for what? For generation of text, images, and everything, right? That we want. Then Gemini, it is from Google. Okay, and it is again a multi-modal thing which is integrated with the Google tools. We are going to use this thing. Okay, Llama, it is again open source, developed by Facebook or Meta, right? So it is open weight model. That means these are closed source, right? These are what? Closed source. This one is closed source, right? But this is open source. Llama you can install in your own system. Llama you can use independently without internet. To use GPT or Gemini, you need internet. You need to connect with the server of Google or server of this guy, OpenAI, right? So using API, we just get connected with the LLM model, which LLM model is sitting in someone else's computer, right? That's why for using these, we requires what? Internet, right? Because the LLM model is not sitting in my system, it is sitting in someone else's system. So to connect with that system, we require internet and API. Llama can be used offline. I can download in my system and can use it without internet. That's why it is called open source model. In coming future, I will try to also create some of the tutorial videos on Llama. Cloud is there. It is developed by Anthropic. Focus on alignment, safety, and conversational context. It is highly used for coding and all. Mistral is there. It is very lightweight. It is again open source. You can install Mistral and you can use it. Today, we are going to focus on Gemini, which is closed source. Okay. In coming days, I'll try to create some of the tutorial on open source as well. Right. So let's move ahead with the Gemini. So how can we use Gemini? See, to use Gemini, first of all, you need what? You need the API, right? So how can you have the API? See, you can just go to Gemini. So if you want to use Gemini, there is a user interface. Okay, here you can give any prompt, right? And this guy will give you the response. Okay, like tell me few idea on a startup in the field of health technology. Okay, so like this, right? But this is a user interface kind of thing, a UI kind of thing, which anyone can use. Okay, suppose I want to add this feature into my own application. Suppose I am creating a kind of a web app, right? Or I am creating a kind of a phone application, a smart application. Okay, like kind of thing. Okay, and I want to add this feature into my own application. Okay, or suppose I have my own data. Okay, suppose I have my own data, right? Like suppose I have a data of my company, of my organization. Based on that data, I want to create a chatbot, okay, with which user can interact, okay, and get the response. Okay, so what can you do for that case? Like there is a product I made, and about that product, like then that product is having some feature, warranty, price, everything. I just want to mention in a particular data file, right? And using the data file, I want to create a chatbot, right? So how can you do that? Because this Gemini had been trained on some specific set of data. Now this guy is not having the information from my own organization, okay, of my own product. Suppose I created a product, this Gemini is not knowing about my product, so this guy can't respond, right? So there are a lot of different things. There are a lot of areas where we need to use Gemini, but we can't directly use. We need to be a developer, right? So what we are, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to explain you some very really interesting kind of labs that we work upon. We are going to first understand Gemini and the API of it. Okay, we are going to understand over here Gemini and the API of it for text generation. All right. Thereafter, Gemini API we will use to describe an image. That means we'll create an application where we can upload an image, and Gemini, using Gemini API, we will let it explain the image, like what are the informations, whatever the things that are present in the image that it will try to explain. All right. Then we'll create a custom chatbot using our private data, right? Our own data. That data Gemini is already not knowing. Okay. It is called what? You are having the pre-trained model. The pre-trained model you are having is what? That is Gemini, right? You are already having a pre-trained model, Gemini. Now we are fine tuning that model once again. Okay, here we have to fine tune the model once again using our own private data, so that this guy can get trained on my data to response using my data, to make a response using my own data, right? Then we'll create a user interface for same, where the user can interact. Then we'll try to deploy it over the cloud, right? So that everyone can use it. And then this is really interesting. We will also try to integrate with our website. Like, in many website, you may have seen at the corner, there used to be a chat option. Okay. People used to click that, okay, and chat with the kind of a chatbot and resolve their problem, right? So it is going to be an end-to-end solution that we are going to build over here. So stay tuned and try to finish this whole learning journey. It is really going to be a very interesting journey in which by the end of it, you will have a project with you. All right. So let's move ahead. So first, we had seen this is a EY, but EY is limited for those set of data which is already used for training the Gemini. We need to see how can you use API. If I can use API, I can make maximum use of Gemini. So to have the API so that I can create my own application using Gemini power, right? I want to use the Gemini power to create my own application. So what we do, I will go to AI Studio. Okay, Google AI Studio, you can see over here. Nice. So once you have a AI Studio over here, you can go to get API key. Okay. Then you can just create API key. Okay. And here you can select Gemini API. and then create API key. Now your API key will appear over here. Just copy this API key and paste it somewhere. Okay, please don't lose it, right? Because once it is done, then after once it is created, right, thereafter if I will open this up again, I can't access that API key. Or let me check if you can access it or not. Most probably once it is created thereafter, okay, so key. Fine. So you can just view the key as well. Okay. But it's always recommended to copy and paste in one go. Okay. So that you should not lose. Right. But if you can click here, you can again access the API key from here. So API. Anyway, so once you have the API key, I'll just copy and paste this API key somewhere. And I will delete this API key after this tutorial because I don't want my API key to be used for any other purpose, right? So this is my API key. I have to use it. So how can I use it now? Okay, stay over here. Just a minute. Mm, Let me just paste the API key properly. Okay, later on come to it and I'll use this API key. Now I'll go to the coding environment. So I'll open up Colab. Okay, Colab is what? It's a Google-based tool, right? The Google tool to write data science, create a data science or machine learning kind of application or Python program. I'll open a new drive. Now here, I need to use the API of Gemini, right? So I need over here to import a library. Let me show you. Import google.generative.ai as GenAI. Okay, this is a library I required. But when I execute it, let's check if this library I can import or not. If I can't import, that means I have to install it. So I'll tell you the process of installing it. First, let it be executed. Thereafter, we'll see whether I can access this guy or I can't access this guy, isn't it? Still, it is connecting with the server of Google. So it may take a few more seconds. Now it connected and now it is trying to execute it. So let's see if it can execute it or not. Fine, it's executed. In your case, okay, or in any case, if it is not executing, do one thing, just run pip install. Suppose you are working on Jupyter Notebook or anywhere else. So just use pip install Google Generative AI, right? Okay, just use this thing. Okay, so here it is not required because requirement is already satisfied. Okay, now once it is done, what you need to configure the API. This guy is used to configure your API. So GenAI dot configure. Okay, and here I have to give what? API key, right? So API key is equals to what? The API key that we just saved over here. Okay, so I'll copy this API key and I will use it over there, right? So I copy it, I go over here and I paste it over here. So now API key will get configured. Next, first, let's say I want to generate some text using this API key, using this Gemini API. But before I want to check what all models do we have. Okay, so for that I'll run a loop for m in GenAI dot list models. Okay, list models. Okay, so this guy will do what? Will help me to have a list of all the models, right? Here I have to give one more condition over here. If generate content, okay, if generate content in what? M dot, M is what? M will represent each model, right? So I'm just trying to access all the models which can generate the content. Okay, so M dot supported, SUPP supported generation methods. Okay, and then I'll just have the name of all the models. So this is how I can access the name of all the models that Gemini actually supports. Okay, so some of them are free, some of them are paid, right? So you can tune it and check it, right? Like for example, these are the very initial model, and these gamma are also a kind of a open source model. Gamma you can install into your system, can use it. Okay, gamma is an open source model of Google. These are closed source model. Okay, these you can't install into your system, can't use it, right? You have to install, you have to use only through API, right? So the latest version is 2.5. Okay, this one TTS means what? Text to speech. These guys are having text to speech kind of capability, right? So we are going to use some of the Flash, right? Because Flash is good for text generation. So how can we use it? First, I have to define the model. Model is equals to Gen AI dot generative model. Okay, Gen AI dot generative models, right? So dot generative model. And here we'll just define our models slash whichever the models that you want. Let's say I want to use this one, model 2.0 Flash. Okay. In case if it will not work, then we can choose some other model, right? So if it is, there are so many models, as I said, are free to use. There are so many models which are not free to use. Depending upon the situation, we can make use of it. Response will be equals to what? Model dot. So this line is just to define your model, okay, that you want to use. Define or choose your model for generation. All right. Then we have to use the next line for giving the prompt. Okay. So how can we give the prompt? Model dot generate content. Okay. And using this, we can give the prompt, right? So what prompt shall I give? Let's say write uh, or or provide me a startup idea in the field of AI in health tech. All right. Right. And thereafter, I'll print the response. Let's check what happened. Okay. So now this is a very first and simple application in which we had seen how can we make use of API of Gemini, right? So here model is defined. This one is for what? This one is for providing prompt. Okay. Now, if you see here, so many informations are there, right? I don't want all these information. I only want this text, right? So I only want the text, so I can use response dot text. All right. So when I use it, I'll get the text over here. Only the text that will be captured from here. Okay. So here I got some of the text. Okay. So here the startup idea in the field of AI in health tech, focusing on a specific need and potential solution along with some key considerations. Startup AI powered personalized rehabilitation platform for stroke survivors. Okay. Thereafter, it has also given all the solutions and everything, so you can use it to have your own startup. All right. Next, we are going to next step, which is we'll try to use Gemini API for image description. That means if I have some image and I want that image to be given to this Gemini, and that Gemini can read my image, or you can say can understand my image, and thereafter it should describe it. All right, that is what we want. All right, so let me check. Let me show you the image that we are going to use over here. All right, and then we will try to work on it. Right. So the image that we will use over here, let me just show you first. All right, so this is a image that we are going to use. That means what's the plan of action? We will provide this image to the Gemini, and we expect Gemini to decode it and explain what all information exists in this image. This is an image representing actually the vector database, right? The fast vector DB, and you creating a kind of a application which can access the information from your database. right, stored into vector database, and then can help you creating a chatbot kind of thing using OpenAI. So this application also we are going to build in coming days. As of now, let's see how Gemini is going to explain this particular image. All right. So let's get back to your coding interface. So if you see the image I already uploaded over here. All right. So image is already uploaded. We just want that this can be explained by my Gemini API or my application, right? So let's have a code over here. Gemini for image explanation. Okay. So let's say first I have to define a model. Okay. Already we know how can we define a model. This is how we can define a model, right? So let's define the model. So this is how I can define the model, right? And this model is defined because of generative AI library, right? So import google dot generative AI. This already we did earlier, no need to do it, but we are creating a new application, so that's why I'm just using it as Gen AI, right? So using Gen AI, we have selected the model, right? But before selecting the model, we also need to do what? We also need to configure the API. So how do we configure the API? Gen AI dot configure API, right? Dot configure and then API key, right? So API underscore key is equals to API key. We are going to use same API key that we had used earlier, right? So I'll just copy this thing, right? And I'll paste it over here. All right. So my API key is defined, model is defined, done. Next, what we need? We just need to access the image file, right? So how can we access the image file? We can make use of, this thing that is file handling properties of Python. Okay. So we'll say that image with open. Okay. We are trying to open. What I try to open? I try to open this guy. So copy the path. Okay. So this file will open. Now this image file, that's why I need to read it in a binary form. It's a binary data. Image file used to be a binary data. That's why I'm using RB. Okay. If it is simple text file, then I could use only R. But since I'm reading a binary file, so RB as image file. Give it a name, image file. So now I access this image file, and thereafter this image file data I will store in image data, right? So image data is equals to image file dot read. Okay, dot read. So this is how I can read it, right? And once I will read the image data, I will pass this image data along with the prompt. All right. So here I'll write response is equals to model dot generate content. Okay. And then here I have to give the prompt. Okay. So what prompt shall I give? I'll give over here describe this image in detail. Okay. Now we will feed the image over here. That means the image data. Okay. After this, we'll feed the image data and then it will try to describe that image data in detail. All right. So let's try to feed the image data. So we had given the text, right? Now we have to give the image information. This kind of input is called what? Multi-modal input. Okay. It is called, let me just write it over, multi-modal input. Multi-modal input means what? It's like we are giving over here two things. That is, we are combining two things to give the prompt. Okay, which is called combining text plus image as input to a Gemini model. Okay, so that is called multi-modal input. So how can we give the multi-modal input? First, we had already given the text. Okay, next I have to give the image. So for giving up the image, that's why you can see we had used this list over here. Okay, So for the image, we have to pass over here one dictionary. Okay, and in this dictionary, we have to give two information. First, the type of image, and second, the actual image. So for type of image, we have to give over a mime type, or you can say meme type also. You can read it. So what is the type of this guy? The type of this guy is PNG, right? If you check it over here, this is a PNG image, most probably. Yes, it is a PNG image. So I'll define image slash PNG. All right. And thereafter, I can have data, right? And what is the data? This is the image data. All right. Clear. Now, once it is done, thereafter, what we do, we'll try to run this thing so that I can get the output, right? So output will be generated where in the response. So print response, and what we do to get the response, actual response, it is dot text, right? That we did last time. So response dot text. So we had seen how can we use API to generate the text from the image. So let's try to execute and check what output it is giving to us. How it is recognizing the image. Okay. So here it is saying, let me open up the image also so that we can see the things. Fine. So this is our image, right? What it is saying. This is here is a detailed description of the image. The image illustrates a workflow or process diagram related to OpenAI and SQL database interaction. The diagram consisting of rectangular boxes, cylindrical arrow, and all those things. Thereafter, user question. This is a first part, right? It identified it. The stage represents the initiation point where a user enters a question. The user is represented by a blue circle containing human figure, a number, arrow one, and this one, right? Next, fast vector DB. The teal cylinder. Okay, fast vector DB. Label fast vector DB is on arrows label is schema retrieval, an example retrieval point from vector database to the prompt template box, indicating that schema and examples are retrieved from the vector DB to form the prompt. These are number two, right? So it's explained the things very well. If you want more detailed explanation, what you can do, you can take this whole thing, okay, and create a prompt to explain these concepts to me step by steps. Okay, so you can get a more descriptive explanation of the same thing. All right. So the point over here is that we know how can we use API to generate the text, right? We know how can we use API to explain the image. But these things we can also do by uploading image over here, right? Here I can upload the image. Here I can just give the prompt. Then what are we doing here? Okay. Here it's like, this process, if we know this process, we can create your own application to generate the text. Right? So you can use your own application to generate, like suppose I want to create a web app. Okay, so I can integrate this process into my own website to generate some sort of text or to read an image kind of thing. So that's what we are going to see next. Okay, after this we'll start with the creating our own applications, as well as I'll show you how can you deploy your applications over a cloud service so that it can be globally used. So stay tuned. We are going to start with the next thing.